Hello, welcome. It is 4:13 a.m. and every single time I record one of these or think about recording them, I regret it more and more. Today I'm joined again by Felix.
Hello.
And today we have a new guest, Joseph.
What's up?
So Joseph's new to the podcast. He is my younger brother. Yeah, I guess you guys know Felix. Felix is a cool guy. I'm going to turn you up a little bit.
Who knows me?
The podcast knows you. Anyways.
Who's that?
Anyone who views the podcast. Okay, so, today we're going to be talking about, wow, this is like one of those like ASMR podcast. Whoa, this is like, yeah, no, I don't know. So today we're going to be talking about, particularly clinical psychology, or like an introduction to clinical psychology, I guess, because I am as much of an expert as I'll be explaining with you guys today. So I guess like for today, I kind of want to just like go over some controversial stuff in clinical psychology. So something like overpathologizing and even like diagnosing within social groups. I want to talk about the helplessness theory, and I want to talk about different personality disorders and whether or not you like your opinions on Psychopath. That's why I brought it up earlier. If we have time, I'll probably also get into like the most common diagnostic criteria for, or not the most common, like the three shared common criteria among psychological disorders. Okay? Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
So, what is overpathologizing? Overpathologizing is when a doctor or physician or anybody will associate an illness that they didn't need to associate it with. So, like, that's a really shitty explanation, but, like, think about it like this. You're coughing, you sneeze a couple times, your throat's a little itchy, and your chest hurts a little bit, and you have, like, cold shivers, okay? Just a little bit. A doctor today would be like, oh, that's symptomatic of COVID-19, which is the current pandemic happening.
You've been demonetized.
I've now been demonetized. A doctor might, prescribe medication and like, oh, isolate yourself for this many days, and that's like a growing like fear, right? And fear is like attributed to overpathologizing, much like social connections, or much like there's something in my fucking throat. Much like if you're scared, like I said, fear within social groups, like if you know the person, or if you if they're like a friend of yours or family member, or even like or even in like different social contexts, like, oh, I want to seem like I'm the smart guy, so I'm going to say some really weird diagnosis, when really, the person could have only had a sore throat and a cough, right? And that's just like the common cold. Because, 99% of the time, I think, it's just like a common cold, That's not an accurate percentage, but you get what I mean, right? It's like, oh, this... Like, oh, dude, I think I have OCD, I always tidy up my plate when I'm eating. I always tidy up my sheets. My desk is super clean. My room is clean. Like, no, you fucking idiot. You're just a clean person. Like, I hate that. Like, I hate that. That's one of my pet peeves, It's like when
people overanalyze and they like try to self-diagnose.
Yeah, people self-diagnosing is one of my bigger pet peeves, but it's like when people like try to seem like, oh, I'm in pre-med, so I know stuff about doctoring. Like it's those type. I know I have a couple friends who are in pre-med who don't do that, and they're lovely people, right? But some people, like especially like if you've ever been to the subreddit I am very smart, it's like filled with people like that. They're just like, oh, I would make an excellent doctor, but I just don't have time because I'm always thinking about theories and abstract formulas. So if you ever need something about cystic fibrosis, just don't hesitate to message me. Like, what did you get your medical degree sitting in your underwear jerking off or something? God damn, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how much of a so I've been talking a lot. What are your like opinions on like overpathologizing? Like, do you guys think that it's a big issue, or do you guys think like, oh, it's better to be safe than sorry, kind of like, oh, so I prescribed him with this medication, but it does no harm. It's just I didn't have to, kind of thing. What do you guys think?
I think it depends on the
Depends
situation.
on what? Go for it.
Well, if you have,
Oh, I forgot one more thing. It is currently 4:19 a.m. So, go on, Joseph.
yeah, it's like if you have enough resources to give your patients, in the case that it is a pandemic, you're not running out of anything,
Mm-hmm.
then I think it's fine
Mm-hmm.
to over pathologize. Is that the word?
Yeah.
You can give
Like,
enough.
you don't think there are like repercussions within like different contexts then?
Objectively, like, no. If you just give, an excess amount of medication that doesn't harm the patient, you have enough of it for everyone. Obviously, I think right now there is enough, and it's not as bad, but it is getting worse, and it could get bad, right?
But like in Italy, it's a huge problem because they
Oh
don't
yeah,
because they're a small country, don't have resources,
yeah, that's why it depends
overcrowded
on the
hospitals.
situation.
Even when it was like early in Wuhan, you'd see like those inciting the fear videos where it's like people are like dropping in hospital waiting areas. What about you, Felix? What do you think? Do you think like over pathologizing is a bigger issue than people make it out to be, or do you think like, oh, better be safe than sorry, if you have it, take it or give it, kind of thing?
Well, I think doctors or most doctors are incredibly intelligent, as they've been through medical school. Well, licensed doctors. I mean, not like people that take a course on Skillshare and just say, "Oh yeah, I'm a doctor." No. I think they all generally go by a rule where they, um, I guess they don't know for sure in the beginning, right? They sort of try to treat the symptoms
Mm-hmm.
by prescribing different medication and stuff like that if they
Mm-hmm.
need it. Um, and I think doctors are relatively like they won't like prescribe you something that you don't need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they will when they, I don't know, when they think that you have an illness that you actually don't. But yeah, yeah, that's all I
Okay.
have to say.
No, it's okay. Okay, so um okay, just wanted to see, like, because a big thing, like one of the bigger issue, not one of the bigger, but a big issue, I guess, in the medical field, at least within like psychology, is over pathologizing, because there's no, you know, there's no test, like real objective testing kit to see, oh,
Right.
this person has major depressive disorder, gotta, psychotherapy, gotta use psychotherapy, or bring them to a psychiatrist and let them deal with it that way. You know what I mean?
All right.
So like so it's up to the clinician's like judgment whether or not this person has this, or if they're just faking, or not. Like, faking is one of them, but like was overestimating, no, that's not the, it's, you get what I mean though, right? Where
Yeah,
the
like
patient
when,
like makes
yeah,
it seem worse than it is.
Yeah,
exaggerating.
Exaggerate, there we go, thank you. So yeah, like exaggerated symptoms could lead to gross diagnostics, right? And disproportionate pathologizing. So yeah, I just wanted to see your opinions on that, because there's this thing within the one of the types of mood disorders called the hopelessness or helplessness theory. There are different kinds of helplessness theory. There's this experiment with a dog, and well, not a dog, but there was the learned helplessness experiment. Do you guys know about it?
No.
So the learned helplessness experiment is this psychologist Seligman. I forgot his name, but what he did was he took dogs and he put one at a time. He put them in a room. Okay, he put one side of the room was shock, the other side of the room floor was safe, and a wall between them that the dogs could jump over. Every time a light in the room would go off, it'd shock the shocking ground.
Wait, cut out or no?
Sorry?
I didn't hear the full thing.
Oh, sorry. What would happen?
Start from the wall of the shock, and then what after that?
So after a light would go on, the floor would get shocked, and the dog would be like, "Oh shit, this fucking hurts!" So they jump to the safe side, and then the light would go off, and then they see, "Oh, this is safe. Okay, I could stay here." In the second version of the experiment, they were put in the same room. The wall was blocked off, but the same light. The light would go off. They learned, "Oh shit, the shock is coming." Okay, they shocked, and they'd move around, but there's no escape, so they couldn't get out of the shock. This psychologist just shocked dogs for his second phase of his experiment.
Very ethical.
Yeah, I know, right? This is one of the most unethical experiments ever.
I mean, I think unethical experiments make for interesting.
I think unethical experiments are wonderful. Okay, wait. Okay, just hold on. I take it back.
Let me rephrase.
Let me change what I said. I don't think they're wonderful. However, I do think that they're a big part in trying in psychology. I think we need to break grounds in order to see what's right and wrong, because we won't know until we cross it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's just my idea, and that's what a lot of clinicians, psychologists, any of the sort, doctors, scientists, fucking anything. That's what they try their best not to do, because if you break the rules before you make them, then you've done something wrong, right? And that's
right.
The whole field within ethics and biomedical ethics, specifically for psychology and clinicians and doctors, but there's whole other kinds of ethics, and it's just I think that it's okay to break the rules if it means you won't break them later, because then we know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I'll continue with the experiment. So what ended up happening was they had a third phase, and the third phase was identical to the first phase. So what they did was they did shock plate one side, safe plate other side, small wall to jump over, and the light would go off. What happened to the dogs? The dogs gave up. The dogs thought that this was inescapable, and so they just stood there and took the pain. And that's what happened, right? So it's really messed up. Just trying to think about it, right? It's
So that's what they do when they're helpless.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's the helplessness experience. They learned helplessness, right? So as I was saying, I gotta find it. I gotta give you guys the proper definition. Give me one moment. I know, right? Coming prepared to his own fucking podcast.
It's okay. I'll just edit this part out.
No, I'm not gonna edit it out. So what do you guys think about that that experiment? Do you guys think there's any other way to have found out that dogs would learn to give up on situations? Because that's really what it is.
I think so.
What
because
do you
mean,
they
guys
need
I'm
to
think?
have like a real situation. It can't just be something too simple and something they don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
But
It
those,
needs to be
but like,
something like, their pain or, you know, something like their health, right? They want to get rid of this
so you
pain, right?
like work on their biological instincts, their carnivorous what's the canine instincts, their
Primal.
primal. Dude, I'm so stupid. All right, Felix, you were
I
gonna
Just, yeah,
say?
mean,
something
they were
they need to react to. Yeah, what?
yeah, like food. I mean, they could have done it with
That's
food, you know.
exactly. That's what I was
Yeah,
just about to
food.
say. Like
That's another one.
Pavlov could have manipulated his experiment to match helplessness. I mean, starving a dog is okay, but now the dog is gonna tolerate pain, right? Like there are different ways to fix the dog. Like there's the positive side where you help the dog, then there's also the negative side, like the implosive therapy side where you give the dog even more pain and then they'll react and then they'll fix themselves. But like that's just never mind. Implosive therapy is highly regarded as one of the worst types of clinical therapy ever because it's you play on people's fears, you know? Like if
Mhm.
somebody has a phobia of snakes, which is one of the most common types of phobias, and instead of easing them to snakes, like showing them cartoons of snakes, bringing them a snake plushie, showing them a snake in a video, showing them a snake through a glass, and then finally letting them touch a safe snake, then letting them touch a dangerous snake. That's generally the course of action of a thing called general desensitization. Implosive therapy is, you have a phobia of snakes? Okay, put them in a room with a killer snake and them by themselves and let them just figure it out. That's exactly what implosive therapy is.
What?
I'm not joking.
Well, can't they just die or something?
Well, like it's the idea. Like if they let's say they had a deathly fear of balloons. What you do is you go through the process. You'd be like, okay, here's a balloon where it's just the idea of a balloon. Okay, now you're seeing the balloon where you're seeing somebody's idea of a balloon. Okay, now you're seeing a balloon where it can't hurt you. Now you're seeing a balloon that's within your vicinity, but it still can't hurt you. Now you're seeing the balloon. Now you touch the balloon. Okay, you're not afraid of balloons anymore. You know what I mean? Instead of like,
Yeah, that's like a
here's a
step by
balloon.
step.
Yeah, step by step, as opposed to, you jump
Instant.
from step 1 to 10 kind of thing.
That's implosive.
That's implosive therapy.
How would implosive therapy be more efficient? I guess
It's not about efficiency. It's about, well, I guess you could factor in efficiency because all factors count. But
yeah.
it's more about getting the person to not be scared anymore, right? So implosive therapy is like one way that people do. So it's like you push them so far off the edge that it brings them back. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Feels?
Yeah.
So general desensitization is you push them off the edge, and so that's the phobia, and then you reel them back in, and you teach them how to climb, kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That makes sense.
I found my resource for helplessness theory. So helplessness theory, in terms of clinical disorders, is it argues that the way a person thinks about failure, specifically failure, makes him or her more or less likely to be depressed.
So this ties into depression?
Yeah, this is specifically about mood disorders.
Okay.
So mood disorders is depression, bipolarism. There are different kinds of bipolarism, actually. There's bipolar 1, bipolar 2. There are different kinds. Depression is unipolar because, uni means 1 and then bi means 2. So unipolar is depression. We generally, I'll do more research about it. But, like to the extent that we learned in class, we haven't learned about any unipolar disorders that are on the opposite side, like the manic side. So do you guys know what manic means?
No.
No.
So manic is like the opposite of depression, whereas depression is like sad but like disorderly conduct, unhealthy sad. Manic is like if you took happiness and then you made happiness happy, and then you made happiness happy, and then you made that third exponent of happiness crazy.
So sort of like okay, I don't want to say psychopathically like happy, but like
Well,
sort
yeah,
of
you don't have to use
Is like
psychopath in
crying
as a
happy
clinical.
manic?
Sorry.
Is like happy but crying considered manic?
Like, yeah, well, like the Joker.
okay.
You get
That
what I-
guy's just crazy.
like no, but like who's the actor for it? Luke Skywalker?
What?
Mark Hamill.
Yeah, Mark Hamill's Joker from the cartoons. You guys remember those?
Yeah.
Yeah, where he's like ha 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 ha. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, so it's even like.
So
oh.
he's like so like,
Unnaturally happy.
yeah, unnaturally happy. That's perfect. You know, you guys can use the word psychopath, by the way, in like non clinical.
I feel like it's a
ways.
very vague term, though.
It is. That's exactly why they don't use it. It's extremely vague, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what really is a psychopath? Oh, a psychopath is a person that doesn't have feelings. Okay, but to what extent do they don't have feelings? Like, do they neglect their feelings, or do they intentionally not, express those feelings? Do they not act on what their feelings are? Do they have them, but do they choose not to believe in them? Because that's another, personality disorder where you have them, but you choose to suppress them, right? So helplessness theory is the way a person thinks about failure could make them more or less depressed. So it's attributing failures to internal characteristics. It's believing failures are stable, believing failure is a stable attribute of yourself and it doesn't change. It's not dynamic, it's stable. It's like a permanent characteristic of you. And it believes that failures are global. So it attributes failures to internal or dispositional characteristics, and it believes that the failures affect global characteristics. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're both guys, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Pretty accurate.
pretty. So your girlfriend breaks up with you. Okay. Let's say you had. Let's say helplessness theory is something your clinician or a clinician was looking at when it came to you, and you had, let's say, one particular type of unipolar mood disorder that was on the negative side, okay? So they would look at things like, so they would assume that you attribute failures to internal characteristics. So they think that you would see the breakup as you thought you weren't good enough for them, right? Like, oh, you didn't, like, you didn't notice them be sad enough. You didn't care about them enough. You didn't, you weren't affectionate enough, right? And so they'll also think that next you believe that your failures will be permanent. So you'll never be affectionate enough. You'll never be good enough because of the person that you are, right? And then they believe they believe that you think that your failures are global. So, oh, you're never good enough for her. You'll never be good enough for anybody. You'll never be good enough for anything or anyone. Like, you won't have friends or relationships. You'll never be good enough for anything, as in you can't do anything, and like it'll keep branching and branching. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what helplessness theory is. So
Does it deal with time as well, like globally and then like forever?
Yeah, that's what the permanent permanent characteristic is.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that the way somebody thinks about their failure can attribute to their own depression, like more of like a humanistic approach to depression, or do you think that it's all to do with, oh, my dopamine neurotransmitter is not being released enough, and so those receptors are being deprived, and that's why that I feel more inclined to act on negative emotions, and so I'm going to be depressed, and that's how your brain like works out some depressions, right? So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that you guys can outthink depression? What do you guys think? I mean, if you guys need to take a second to
hard to
outthink
tell.
depression, like that's a big one. You know, that's a very old belief, right? Lots of people in the past didn't believe that um, psychological disorders were a real issue, right? Like, oh, you have a mental disorder, dude. What? Go. Either you belong in the mental asylum or you're faking it and you're a wimp. And be a man, or come on, grow up, girl. You need to be a woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They used to
I
think being gay was a mental disorder.
Yeah, right. Like people in the past were very I say inconsiderate,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's like um, some people take it too far nowadays. Like some people are like, "Oh, I want to mandate you to say my pronoun." Personally, I
Right.
like if you want my respect, you just show me that you are a person that I should respect, and then I'll respect you. But don't force me to call you by some made up name because you know it'll hurt your feelings, right? Like, but anyways,
Yeah.
this is not a political podcast. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that you can outthink depression? Do you guys think that your thoughts do matter, but they don't matter to that much? Do you think your thoughts are the only thing that matters? Do you guys think that it's really the balance of neurotransmitters and chemicals in your brain? Like, what do you guys think? I need like,
Has it been proven that the neurotransmitter things or the dopamine release things have an effect on who gets depressed?
well, yeah, like some different balances of chemicals in your brain affect your mood, right? So if you receive less dopamine and serotonin, you'll usually be more sad, right? It doesn't mean that you're sad all the time, but when a normal person would, normal is a very, very loose and inaccurate definition, but in a normal situation, all right, I'm allowed to say that, I think. In a normal situation, if you were to be sad, then you would be sad. And if you were to be happy, you would be happy less often or less of the time. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it does affect depression to an extent, but it's not a guarantee, I don't think.
Are the releases of dopamine dependent on what you do, or are they inherent or like genetic?
I mean, certain things can influence the amount of dopamine, like drinking caffeine releases an amount of dopamine. Sleeping I think, releases dopamine. Like, doing things that are enjoyable and eating things that are enjoyable, or cravings and satisfactions. Those, promote dopamine, right?
Okay.
Or they promote happy drugs in your brain, right?
Yeah.
So
But can doing things, on like a daily basis or like can habits affect your like the average release of dopamine? Like on average, how happy you are based on
depending on the
something you do every
activities,
day. Yeah.
like, see, here's the thing. You know how if you hear, like, how classical conditioning works?
Is that like listening to classical music?
No, no.
I mean,
No,
it
no,
could.
I mean, technically, that's
Okay, okay.
I mean,
classical conditioning is the most basic form of conditioning for your person, where it's you associate an action with a biological change. So if I eat old pasta every time I walk by a game store, okay, and let's say, like, even though I consciously know it's old pasta, or I know that it's gonna make me sick, the act of making me sick and then me walking by that game store will change the way I think. And so every time I walk by that game store, my stomach will be predisposed to be sick, and so I will feel sick. Do you get what I mean? So you
Yeah.
so you take a conditioned stimulus, which is the pasta, and an unconditioned stimulus, which is the game store, and you associate the same conditioned you associate the same unconditioned response. And so when you walk by the game store, now you've created a conditioned response. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you will grow to be sick at the game store. You get what I
Holy
mean?
shit.
You
Yeah,
get it? So
I noticed that a lot.
yeah, it happens. Like, it happens every day to people. Like,
What,
that's how people.
walking by a game store and
No,
getting
no, no,
sick?
no, not that specific,
Not
but like,
specifically that. It's just everything.
you know, like habits. That's how habits are developed.
Yeah.
You know.
No, yeah, I know.
So like, if you write your name down at the top of your paper every single time you do homework, chances are, before you start your homework, even if you don't know what you're doing for your homework, you'll write down your name. Or even when you write something on a piece of paper, you'll probably associate it to writing your name down at the top of the paper. That's just probably something you'll condition yourself to do. Of course, you can, like, you know, force yourself not to think in conditional terms, or, you know, outthink your habits, but that's you develop counter habits and stuff. So yeah, as I was saying, depending on your activity and what neurotransmitters are released in your brain, your brain will fire neurons that fire regularly together. That was really bad wording. Here, let me do it again.
One more time.
The same neurons that fire at the same time will likely fire at the same time if they fire more often together. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
So if you release dopamine when you type at your keyboard, like let's say you I don't know, your keyboard has this amazing feeling, and so it feels good, right? Your body will release dopamine. So your body releasing dopamine and typing at the keyboard will fire at the same time, right? And so it's likely that when you type at a keyboard, your body will fire those receptors, those neurotransmitters, and, you know, have those receptors take in the dopamine at the same time, right? But then there's also that idea where it's like, if you drink coffee on your way to work every morning and you skip one day, you will feel extra tired that day because your body is expecting the caffeine, right? And so instead of feeling awake like you normally do, you'll feel tired. And that's the idea of homeostasis and your body wanting to be normal. So that's just how, like, classical conditioning works, and how neurons firing at the same time would work. Felix, you haven't talked too much. What are your opinions on
I'm just
helplessness
taking it
theory? How taking it in?
Yeah.
Good question, Joseph. Good.
Okay, but like, I heard.
Yeah,
Like,
what'd you
it's
hear?
it's not probably not accurate because I have no sources, but
It's okay.
I heard when you release a high amount of dopamine on average, then you get sadder, and it tied in with jacking off.
Yeah. So, okay. So remember how I said homeostasis? I didn't talk about it too much. Homeostasis, right? So that's your body wanting to come back to that zero line. So let's say you're on a graph, right?
Yeah.
If the graph goes up on the y-axis, right, and you just keep going through time, okay? So you're always going on the right side of the x-axis, and you're just going through time. If you go up, your body will do its best to make sure it comes back to zero. So if you go up every morning, your body will intentionally go down every morning, and so you going up and your body going down will make it a flat curve, okay? Now, let's say that whatever was making you go up every morning stops one day. Your body is continuing to try and go down, right? It doesn't know.
Oh, that makes sense.
So you will go down, okay? Now,
Okay.
if your body is always taking in dopamine, okay? Your body gets used to
Just always trying to reduce.
taking in dopamine, so it wants to reduce it, so
go back to equilibrium.
Exactly. So it'll open up more dopamine receptors, and it'll probably release other neurotransmitters to try and calm you down.
Okay.
And so those neurotransmitters, what they'll do is they'll probably make you sad. Remember my keyboard example? That was a horrible example. It was a horrible example because dopamine is very is because dopamine is a really interesting drug. And so I was just trying to get the point that like when some neurons in your brain fire at the same time as other neurons in your brain, they will likely fire at the same time. Okay, so
they keep on doing that?
Yeah, so like if you always I don't know, write your name down and tap your foot, your body will, every single time you write your name down, it'll probably tap your leg will probably tap your foot. Right? Like the two movements get associated.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be movement all the time. It could be emotions, but like I said, emotions are they're very very quirky, I guess.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Felix, or?
No.
So let's say in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
It's probably gonna like sound like I do it, but in the morning you jack off, right?
It's okay. Sometimes
Every single morning.
you gotta satisfy. Sometimes the wood won't go away until you chop the tree. Go on.
That's pretty much it. And so if in the morning I can't do it, I will likely feel sad or just, a little bit angry.
Yes, if you happen to do it every morning. If you do it every morning and you skip one morning, you will probably want the dopamine that you're not feeling, and so you'll get like angry.
Kind of explains stuff.
What the fuck? Okay.
Holy
I am
shit.
not a psychologist. I can't diagnose you, and plus you are my younger brother. You're not even younger than me. You're like like 15 months younger than me. We're basically the same age.
At this point.
You fucking bitch. I'm joking. Relax. Okay, now I wanted to move on
That's actually hilarious.
Now I wanted to move on to the psychopath controversy. Do you guys think psychopath should be a disorder?
I mean, the way you said, what's the disorder that's closest to
So,
psychopathy or something?
What do you guys? Okay, no, I need to hear like what you guys think psychopath is though, because psychopath, okay, so is there a difference between psychopath, sociopath? Go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so what's the difference?
Psychopath, like, in the most stereotypical terms,
Mm-hmm.
like if you just ask like my friends that do comp sci, they don't have no idea about this stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you just ask them psychopath, they're gonna think like serial killer or some shit.
Okay.
Killer, someone that's like aggressive,
Okay.
doesn't care about life. If you ask sociopath, you think of someone that's devious, always wants to like take advantage,
Mm-hmm.
blends in
Okay.
with like the average person.
So when I was in grade 11, I was told the opposite. So in my psychology class, we were told that psychopaths are the people that are calm, collected, they blend in, while sociopaths are actively violent and they go out of their way to be danger.
Okay.
That's what we were told. So now you're told something else, right? Or is that what you imagine that your friends would say? But do you have a different idea?
I guess my idea of psychopath is just like the collected thoughts of what a psychopath is, not like a formal definition, but just like over time during my life, whatever was associated with the word psychopath, I just make up an idea of what those are.
Yeah. That's actually a really good categorization theory. It's called
common sense.
It's called exemplar theory. And so what exemplar theory is you have an idea in your head, okay? So psychopath. The more examples you see will be attributed to that definition of psychopath, right? So they'll all factor in. There's another type of categorization theory called prototype theory, where it's like where you look at different prototypes in your life, and it's like, oh, this is the prototype of bird, okay? So when you look at a flamingo, you don't immediately think it's a bird. You think it's some other messed up thing because it doesn't follow the 2 wings and short feet and beak kind of thing. But if you look at it, it does have all of those, right?
Yeah.
Right? But it's also like, what's the difference between a chair and a table? Well, a chair you sit on and a table you eat on, and tables are usually bigger. And what about a nightstand? That's still, you can use that as a chair. It's smaller. Yeah, but a nightstand usually has drawers. Okay, well, what about a stool? A stool is generally a chair. What about a coffee table? I mean, a coffee table is like a little bit bigger and not as comfortable. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like all of these factors you take in to really identify what something is, right?
Yeah.
So that's just 2 types of theories. What about you, Felix? What's your definition of psychopath, or psychopath and sociopath?
I think if I really think about it, I have like separate definitions of psychopath and sociopaths, but I think generally throughout my life, I think through talking to other people, I've just associated the word psychopath with like somebody that's crazy and would like do crazy, because like people really like, they loosely use the word psychopath, right?
Yeah,
they see some crazy guy on the street that might have, I don't know,
some kind
consumed
of
they might have consumed something,
substance
and they're
abuse
just they're just running around and doing things that you don't normally see people doing. People can usually call them psychopaths. So I mean, due to that reason, I've just loosely used the word psychopath in situations. So I don't know. I don't really have more to add.
So the reason, like one of the bigger reasons why psychopath isn't used is because it's a very, very loose definition, and and because it's loose, its attributes and its categories and its characteristics, that's the word. Its characteristics can be better explained by other types of personality disorders, mood disorders, different types of psychological disorders, right? So what I was talking about earlier was one type of SPD. So I can't pronounce. I don't know how to pronounce it. Schizoid, schizoid personality disorder. You know what? Here, I'll put it in. Okay, I'll just spell it out. SCHIZOID personality disorder. Schizoid, right? Like is that how you? But like schizophrenia is schizophrenia. It's not schizophrenia.
That was probably schizoid then.
Yeah, schizoid, right? So schizoid personality disorder, and this is coming from Gulf Bend Center.
Yeah, it is schizoid.
Personality. So Gulf Bend Center is this. It seems like a trustworthy website. They have references, and they seem like a useful place. So.
Oh, it's schizoid.
Schizoid. Oh, there. Did you listen to it?
No, it's just on Google. It shows you the pronunciation.
Oh.
So it's
okay.
SKITSOI, whatever.
Is that the phonetic version, or did they show you
phonetic?
Just...
Yeah.
Okay, the phonetic version has different.
There's always these letters that
Schizoid.
I don't understand.
Schizoid. Yeah, I know. I know how to read them now because of linguistics. Take linguistics, guys. Linguistics.
Holy shit. Yeah, just here. I'll type the phonetic one.
In what, the general chat?
Yeah, I'll just put that there.
Schizoid. Yeah, it's schizoid. Okay, so schizoid. That's weird. Okay. So the schizoid personality disorder is characterized by pervasive pattern of social detachment and restricted range of emotional expression. These people tend to be socially isolated. They prefer mechanical or abstract activities that involve little human interaction, and they tend to appear indifferent to both criticism and praise. So if you congratulate them or you cuss at them, they will be indifferent. And they generally like to be alone, and they don't like to seek out or enjoy close relationships. So they like to be alone. They don't like to express their emotions. They feel indifferent about their emotions. They're kind of like the unempathetic, they lack empathy kind of personality. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of people used to define psychopathy and sociopathy as. It was like they lack empathy, right? But now that it's not used anymore, this do you think this could be one of the types of disorders that replace psychopathy or sociopathy?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it, right? Restricted emotional range, failure to reciprocate gestures or facial expressions. Like, that seems like it, right?
Yeah.
That seems like going pretty serious. That seems like something you can't fake. Like failing to like respond to a facial expression. That's
Like, they
pretty
can't
extreme.
reciprocate that expression. Like, if you smile, they will not smile.
Oh, they can't. Oh, yeah. It's still.
They lack it. They could probably teach
They lack it.
themselves, but they just they lack it. I don't.
Damn, that's pretty. That's extreme. I feel like people can't fake that.
You think, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they're good actors. Sometimes people just want to be edgy, and they want like a really fucked up disorder. You know what I mean?
Well, I think if someone studies like the disorder well enough, they can play a character that
Oh
like
yeah, of
represents.
course.
Yeah.
But I think true human nature will come out at some point. I think somebody can fake it so long before their cognitive what's it called? Their cognitive resources run out. You know what I mean?
Well, wouldn't you think maybe some people would I guess condition themselves to actually believe that this is who they are?
Oh, you know what? That's a really good point. I think some people would go to that extent to force themselves to believe that this is who they are. But at the same time, like, lots of theories surrounding stress and, general anxiety disorder show that you tend to, what's it called? You tend to run out of cognitive and like brain resources to really cope with or deal with the effects that are going on outside of your brain. So I think somebody could do it, but I can't say for certain because I'm not a psychologist and I haven't studied that much.
Well, I think like I guess not like a complete uh example of this would be method acting.
No, I'm
I
not saying it's not
No, I
possible.
know.
I'm just saying it's
No, I
like
know.
they,
I'm
is they,
saying that there are people that do it already, and
yeah, yeah,
it,
yeah.
but like they just don't. I guess like method acting is sort of for like a short period of time.
That's what I think,
Um,
right? Like, I think
yeah.
like it can only go so far, and then at some point they'll break. You know,
What
the
causes them to
Yeah.
break?
just the fact that their brain doesn't want to continue providing them with the effort to continue,
Oh, so it
because it
needs
takes
effort.
it takes effort to act, right? It takes effort to show a different you, right? And very, very similar to stress, it takes effort to cope with stress. It takes effort to play a part. So it'll probably take effort to continue to convince yourself that you are this person when deep down you know that you're not. You know what I mean?
Oh, like just like what Felix said. If you condition yourself to believe you're something else or someone else, let's say you want to believe you have this schizoid type of disorder,
Mhm.
wouldn't your brain just, stop needing to put effort over time? Isn't that what conditioning should do?
No, well, I don't I don't think conditioning does that. I think conditioning just allocates your energy to a different job. So
Oh,
So remember my caffeine example? So when you first drink caffeine, okay, let's say you're off decaf, you need that caffeine, you need that like real that charge, you know? So you drink that first caffeine, there's a lot of caffeine, so you feel like awake, right? You feel like you can't get tired anymore. So what your body's doing is it's trying to put more effort into taking in that caffeine, right? And so
Okay.
it wasn't expecting it. The more often you do it, the more effort your brain tries to change you into, getting in more caffeine. And that's why people need more and more caffeine, right? Like it's like, oh, 2 weeks, I had a small, but then I moved to a medium because I just needed more. And then after 4 weeks, it's like, the medium was good, but after 2 sugars, 2 creams, I needed more caffeine, so I scrap the sugars and I take a large 2 cream, 2 cream no sugar, and then after that you take an extra large, yada
So it
yada.
keeps on
It keeps
increasing.
the ball keeps rolling, right? Your brain just tries to adjust, right? And so even if it's a small adjustment for the single day, or if it's a large adjustment for the single day, if it's a small adjustment for the year, it's still an adjustment that it's going to have to make. And so that's why I think that their true self will definitely come out at some point. But
So
I
that's
but
called
I'm
conditioning, right?
conditioning. Yeah, conditioning is like
Oh, okay.
the allocation of different resources to make up for what is gained or lost, so that your body can reach homeostasis.
Yeah. So what are you gonna say?
Oh no, I was gonna say like just like I'm happy to be wrong, but I'm arguing my point because I thoroughly think that no one could actually do that for that long.
So you
I think
can't allocate resources to different locations in order to
forever,
change. Oh, forever.
right? Like
Oh,
I think it'll be too taxing on their brain.
okay. Okay.
Because it's not like they're getting in a drug. It's like they're trying to change themselves inside, you know?
Yeah.
So like trying to fake it is different than actually having it. Is what I mean.
Oh, so like the disorder can't be faked or can't be sustained with drugs?
I think it could be sustained with drugs, but I don't think it could be sustained with your own drugs.
Oh, okay.
What do
No,
you
I
think,
get it now.
Felix? Do you still think that, you know,
I don't
with
think there's a way of knowing for sure,
yeah.
and maybe you can be the one that finds out. But
I hope so.
yeah, do you?
Do I think so? Or do I
Yeah,
hope so? I don't think so. But I'm
I feel
always
like
open to
I
being
feel
wrong.
like I feel like most of the ways that I can think of figuring this out would be unethical.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, I have nothing else to say to that. Unethical experiments are useful, but they're
Yeah.
unethical, so there's
Especially if it's like something to do with someone's mental health. I think
yeah, that's it's not cool to fuck with people anymore.
it's
Sigmund
kind of
Freud did that. What Sigmund Freud did was he had a patient of his, and the patient was taking a drug, and so instead he he did experiments on the patient, and I think at some point he made the patient take cocaine. Um, I mean, he was also taking cocaine, so I mean, like, that guy was off the hizzy, but whatever, he was crazy. He's crazy.
yeah.
So the other personality type, or the other personality disorder that might match your description of psychopath sociopath, is the antisocial personality disorder. Antisocial personality disorder is characterized by a pervasive pattern of disregard for the rights of other people that manifest as hostility or aggression. They deceit and manipulate other people, and that's kind of central to their personality disorder. Now, you can only diagnose this personality disorder when the person turns 18. But
Why is that?
because, hear me out.
Oh, is it? Okay. Okay.
Because the the patient will experience will one of the diagnostic criteria for this disorder is having a conduct disorder when the person is at a very young age, which is a juvenile form of antisocial personality disorder. What conduct disorder is, it's, no regard for people, it's purposely not following the rules. It's generally like it's the thing that happens before antisocial personality disorder. Give me 1 second. So what do you guys think? Do you guys think that matches the description of a psychopath more often?
That reminds me.
Not more often.
Sociopath.
Sociopath? Like
From what
my
I know.
version of sociopath or your version of sociopath?
My version, just what I collected over time. I just think sociopath is someone manipulative and like it's hard to explain. It's someone who wants to.
It's hard to explain, right? I think that's one of the bigger issues with why they don't use this term anymore.
Yeah, every time I think of sociopath, like the best example I would give is, some person that is evil, trying to blend into the crowd and trying to get rid of you without having to physically get rid of you.
So they manipulate you?
They manipulate others and you.
And you. Okay.
Let's say it's in a school.
Mm-hmm.
I bet this, like every time I think of, I don't know why I associate these two disorders with gender, but I think psychopath is dude, like a man,
Mm-hmm.
and then I think sociopath is a girl, just because of like high school.
Okay.
I think psychopath would be a dude trying to beat another dude,
Yeah.
get into a fight, do what boys do.
That's
And then
actually
sociopath.
so interesting.
And then sociopath is like a girl. They won't fight or pull hair or do anything. They would like gossip,
Create theories.
Create theories, exactly.
Okay.
Do it the non-physical way.
The reason why I'm allowing this, because generally, like, this is like, oh, what are you, sexist? Okay, hear me out, okay? So, we learned in class that men are generally more aggressive. Testosterone generally higher testosterone means you will likely aggress more. But here's the key thing related to Joseph's story. Men will generally aggress physically, women will generally aggress relationally. So it's socially, verbally, anything that isn't physical. So that's, guys, like, isn't that so cool? How his idea of, sociopath, psychopath with male and female types of manipulation relates to the general collected data of how people aggress. It just goes to show you that data is never a lie. And vaccines do not cause autism, for anyone thinking that.
Just took a turn.
Oh my god, the anti-vax community.
Let's
not get into that.
We're not gonna talk about that. That's a whole other psychological disorder.
That's another.
Okay, so because we have a little bit of time and because the direction for this podcast, I didn't exactly have a particular direction because, like, I wanted to start the forensic side of this podcast with this, like, with an introduction to clinical psychology, but it's so hard because an intro to clinical psychology doesn't have anything controversial about it. It's either A or B or C or D. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, there's criteria. Here's the criteria. Let's talk about the criteria. Like, do you get what I mean? Speaking of talking about the criteria, I see that we have a little bit of time. I might shorten this for the SoundCloud version because I only have 51 minutes left on SoundCloud.
You have to buy minutes?
Yeah, you have to get the pro version. But anyways, the DSM-5 is the diagnostic standard for. God damn it, Alex! You should know this. Oh man, I'm so. So DSM-5 is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and 5 means 5th edition. So the DSM-5 is it's criteria for mental disorders, and it's what Canadian psychologists use for diagnosing mental disorders. And it's like I said, it's a very, very unclear area of how they diagnose it. They kind of have to make the best judgment call, right? And that goes back to overpathologizing, seeing whether or not this person really is this, or if they're faking, or if it's really just they want to be it, or they're displacing feelings towards it, or do you get what I mean? Yeah. So this gray area is very much talked about, but there are 3 criteria that are used with every single psychological disorder. Oh man, I'm tired. So yeah, these are like I guess you'd call the common criteria. That's what I was talking about earlier. It's the the 3 criteria that the DSM-5 uses for everything. I said that twice now, like a fucking idiot.
It's okay. It's 5 a.m. Welcome to the 5 a.m.
Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast. Throwback to last episode. Go listen to last episode. So the first criterion is that this psychological disorder, if the person has it, it is causing them or other people around them lots of significant distress. So what I mean by them or people around them, some people get sad, right? Some people have like sad seasons even, there was like this Blue Monday in January or some shit like that,
Mm-hmm.
So, you could be sad or whatever, right? But to be diagnosed with an actual disorder, it needs to cause you significant distress. So, like with MDD, for instance, you need to hit a really low point for more than 2 weeks, and this 2-week period can range from 2 weeks all the way to 3 months, and it can go more than that, but it can't go less than 2 weeks. Okay, that's what major depressive disorder is. It's a period of lowness, but this lowness causes you significant distress. Okay.
Yeah.
You could say something like, oh, what about dysthymia? Dysthymia is another type of mood disorder, particularly a depressive disorder. What dysthymia is it's constant low, it's constant like depressed mood. So it doesn't mean that you hit like 11 out of 10 on the lowness scale. That's major depressive disorder, but that usually goes away within a short amount of time, and there is a very, very high remission rate. I think 4 out of 5 patients enter remission within a year of MDD. Dysthymia has a very, very low chance of remission. It's a constant state of not good feeling, I guess. And then you have something called double depression, which is kind of the worst of both worlds. It's basically you're constantly in this low state, and then you have periods of extremely low state. Do you get what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like you combine the two, which
Right.
is I don't like. If anybody like, how some people want a psychological disorder because it's like, oh, it's something with their personality. Like, have you ever heard that kind of stuff?
Yeah, that's kind of dumb.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
who's bragging about having double depression? It's like it doesn't enter, like, it's so hard to think about.
I think when people do it, like they're
They
seeking
want to
attention.
seem different. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
But that's a different type of personality disorder. That's called what's it called? That's called histrionic histrionic personality disorder. It's a pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking. And so, like, imagine a drama queen. Now, imagine a drama queen all the time. And they become uncomfortable in situations where they're not the star. You know what I mean? Like, they're constantly trying to be the spotlight of the room. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I say you know what I mean too often. I need to stop that. Like, that's a problem. That's a disorder.
You should have like a you know what I mean.
It causes me psychological distress. No, I'm joking.
All you gotta do is self-diagnose yourself.
Yeah, man, self-diagnose, because that's normal. Fucking. Oh man. Okay. So the second criteria is that this they can't be, so in order to attribute their state of mind to a psychological disorder, it should fit this disorder best and shouldn't be better fitted by a different psychological disorder. Get what I mean? Oh my, I did it again.
Yeah.
So in order to diagnose them with, let's say, double depression, they better not fit into dysthymia or what's it called? Major depressive disorder. Right. Better. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like it makes more sense to I guess diagnose them with double
depression rather than dysthymia if they experience or if they're more characteristic of double depression, right? The third one is this psychological disorder cannot be attributed to substance abuse. So if they do a line of crack, you can't attribute histrionic personality disorder to someone who's high off their fucking mind, who's on a psychedelic, right?
Right.
My question to you guys is, do you think this criteria is suitable? Do you think the individual criterion need to be adjusted? And do you think that this... Start thinking of your answers. I don't like pauses. Do you guys think that there needs to be additional changes to the common criteria among all psychological disorders?
So, being more specific?
Be either more specific. Do you think they need to be, it could be more general? Do you think, this one substance, it can change the person's mind within an hour kind of thing? Just whatever you guys think. Do you guys think they need changes?
I haven't thought about it too much, but I think different, disorders could warrant different levels of.
This criteria is common to everything though. It's not like each one has different criteria. If someone has antisocial personality disorder, it's not the same as major depressive disorder. Unless that's not what you mean. Explain what you mean. Let me hear you out.
Let me think about it for a second.
Joseph, what do you think? Do you think that this criteria is suitable? Does it need changes? Do you think there are any underlying issues right now or any prospective attributes?
For every single disorder, if there could be more criteria added, then I guess why not? I don't know.
But this criteria is common to all of them, right? So they all have these three, and then each one of them has additional ones. Major depressive disorder has, if the person, or if antisocial personality disorder, that one has these three criteria, but in addition to these three, it also has three specific types of what's it called? The person is also characteristic of three types of actions, and so they could be deceitful, manipulative, They could disregard rules. They could disregard emotions. They like unempathetic. Like it's like
Okay,
they
so
experience three more of those kinds, and then there's other things that are attributed to antisocial personality disorder to help the psychologist diagnose them, but they need to experience those three first. But do you think
okay,
there needs to
so
be additions to every single one?
well, if they share too much between each other,
Mm-hmm.
because they share a common trait, right?
Yeah.
If they share too much, then I
You think there could be troubles with diagnosing or overpathologizing or mispathologizing, which is like,
well, yeah, if there's too little of a difference between them, then the same diagnosis will be used, or a very similar diagnosis will be used for three different disorders that are
mm-hmm,
distinctly different, right?
mm-hmm,
That could be a bit of an issue,
mm-hmm.
or big, depending on the situation. Um, so all in all, I just say more criteria should be added.
More criteria should be added.
More
Felix, what do you
criteria
think?
should be added to it for more like recognition of what disorder it really is.
Felix, you were gonna say something?
Um,
It's
I
kind of a
don't
hard
know.
question.
Yeah, like
Wait, kind of a what?
Hard question. I
Oh,
don't know how to specifically answer that.
so
yeah.
I think what you were trying to say is like, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm hoping to being wrong, but were you trying to get at like different groups of disorders should have their own common criteria, like that kind of specificity, or do you think that each type of psychological disorder should have its own criteria, and even though all disorders share maybe one or two things, that it shouldn't mean that there should be a common criteria, but that each one has their own criteria and they're indistinguishable.
You're asking me, right?
Either
Um,
person. Felix, what do you think? If Joseph, you don't have anything to say, just anybody.
I mean, if I think every single psychological disorder has, one thing in common. It's part of the brain, right? Has to do with your psychology, right?
Yeah.
So I think every single disorder will have one or two things in common, and I think that's what makes categories. As
Okay.
long as they have something in common, they'll be just a different kind of category.
Okay. So yeah, kind of what I said. What do you think, Felix?
I guess to extend on Joseph's point is, I think there could be multiple categories.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah,
Because they have categories for disorders, like they have personality disorders, which also comes with its own like personality disorders have three other categories. They have three clusters. They have cluster A, cluster B, and cluster C.
Yeah.
Um, and then there are mood disorders, which specifically affect how you feel, as opposed to your like the way you act within the norm and like certain rituals within that society.
Why are you asking this question?
Just like your opinion, like I like to see
No,
the
like
opinion. What? Sorry.
what I mean is like not like, in general why you're asking, but is this for like a certain reason?
I think that the like people who don't study psychology might not understand the psychological point of view until they hear it, and then when their voices are heard, then we can either come to a corroboration, or we can let the people that are experts in their fields come up with a strategic and intellectual decision or intelligent choice. So I like to ask, friends, family, just like I plan to do what's it called, vlogs and stuff of just like just random thought bubbles, and also go out and ask other people, like people in the public who don't know me, just like their opinions, like just like because it's the fresh mind that isn't thinking about it. That comes best with answers that aren't expecting it. Like I told you today, hey, do you want to join my podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I tell you before that it was a podcast specifically about psychological topics?
Nope.
No?
No, I
But
didn't know what it's going to be about.
at the beginning of the podcast, did you know about it? It was going to be about psychology. Like, did I say like, oh, we're going to talk about overpathologizing and psychology and stuff like that? Did I
Well,
say?
I didn't know what everything meant.
Mm-hmm.
Before the podcast, you mentioned a few things.
Mm-hmm.
So that I expected to be. I didn't know it was going to go like this. I thought we were just. I didn't really know what to expect, honestly.
Exactly. That's good, right? It brings in, you know,
I guess it's more honest.
yeah, more honest, more like fast response. Like people like, especially if you ask a stranger, people don't want to be there too much, right? Unless they're like really, really extroverted and, you know, kind of just like DTF all the fucking time. Sorry, that was really funny.
That's one way of putting it.
If they're just like really like, you know, if they're just really like into talking to people outside and stuff, then, you know, they might not feel as uncomfortable. But people like, they just want to get stuff done, right? Especially with strangers.
Yeah.
So if you ask it, then they might give you their initial honest response. They're fast thinking, you know. They aren't thinking critically. They're thinking like the what was the IAT called again, Felix? I forgot. I said it in a podcast a long time ago. Not a long time ago. I said it in the last podcast. Dude,
I definitely don't remember, man.
it's okay. It's more honest. It's more. Yeah, it's exactly what you said, Joseph. It's just honest.
I feel like
fast.
It's like instinctive, right? It's what you'd say out of the blue.
well that doesn't
Implicit
necessarily...
association test. That's what the IAT stands for. And so it's like their implicit thoughts, their implicit associations with these topics. That's why I ask.
But I feel like just because like they want to like it's instinctive doesn't mean it's honest, you know. It could just be, oh, I want to get this question done.
Yeah,
with and
that's
get on with my
that's
day.
the other thing.
That's true.
I was very naive about that. Thanks for pointing that out. The IAT does have a problem with that, where it's like, oh, your reaction time might be fast, but it's not what you truly believe, right? But there's also this other thing where instead of reaction time, I'm not asking the person for a certain amount of time, right? I'm just asking them to answer truthfully, right? And so because they know that they might be on camera or they might be recorded, they might answer differently, right? They might answer with a second thought, you know. But like I'm not looking for like fast react. I'm looking for honest. Like I'm looking for honest answers. That's what I mean to do, you know.
It's
So
like
this
going back to
podcast.
it's like going back to like the first podcast. Like I think we were talking about like different tests and stuff like that.
We were talking
people
about
can,
personality.
yeah. So people can, yeah. So I think it was like a personality test or something. I think we were discussing it. I think it was you who said, God, I
Just
think
whatever. Like what was it about? Like what are you trying to get at?
No, like like people won't answer honestly. Like
They
want to
answer because they want to answer because the way they want to be seen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, how they're perceived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like that's more honest though than fast reactions. Do you get what I mean? Like
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I feel like the way people want to be seen and their answers to controversial questions are their honest answers. Now hear me out. The way people want to be seen isn't the same thing as personality in this case. People want to be, you know, very some people want to be really conscientious. Like they want to seem tidy, they want to seem organized, logical. They don't want to seem loose and very like more outgoing, but actually no, that's the wrong word. They don't want to seem as loose, carefree. They want to seem like strategic, collected, right? I feel like that's different than putting your beliefs into your answers, right? Like if you want to if you want to believe a certain thing, then you will say that thing. And because you said that thing, that's the honest thing. Do you know what I mean? Oh my god, I did it again.
In certain scenarios, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, like it's not gonna work everywhere. I agree with you there, but I think the more honest answer is the one that they want to seem like they believe in to the outside world, even though their internal thoughts don't match.
Yeah.
What?
I feel like this is a very like specific case.
But here's the thing: it's not like I'm not asking them what do they think. You know, girls or guys are better. You know, I'm asking them, hey, do you think that psychologists should change the way they look at mental disorders because it's from the viewpoint of people that are outside the field of psychology? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, do you get kind of like where I'm trying to shoot my shot?
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a play on words so I don't say, get what I mean?
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Oh my god, please no. So that's the reason why I ask these questions, Joseph. I ask them so that people can, you know, come to the decision where it's just about how people look into the field of psychology and how the field of psychology, or how I get taught the field of psychology is on the rest of society. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining me. It's not about time. We just finished our introduction to clinical psychology. What do you guys think? Joseph, what do you think? Do you think your big brother is stupid, or he's got a pretty fun podcast?
It's actually a good podcast. It's a good idea.
Yeah.
Pretty engaging.
Thank you.
Because you could take the average person, get a pretty decent.
See, I'm not like Joe Rogan
discussion.
where I need celebrities, you know?
True.
It forces people to think.
That's what I want to do. I want to get people to, you know,
it could be
really
anyone.
look at the topics. Sorry?
It could be anyone.
Yeah. Felix, what do you think of today's podcast? I know it was a little disorganized and it was a little bit difficult, and I should have came more prepared for one of my I think this is my favorite topic in psychology, but it was hard to introduce this topic in within my opinion. But what do you think? What do you think of today? Do you think it?
I think it has potential. I think we need more sleep.
Yeah, that's accurate. Joseph, why are you not in bed already?
Oof.
I don't know how to fix my schedule. I tried your method and I tried my method.
Okay, well, I'll give you a new method. This will be...
I'm not doing the caffeine one ever again.
Oh, why did you do that one? I gave you 3 methods, dude.
You didn't. You gave me that one.
I gave you that one, but I also gave you the one where you, condition yourself to... I'll help you, don't worry. I mean, I can't... I'm not licensed to help you, but I'll give you a way so that you can work your schedule around, and maybe it'll help, because that's what I've seen has helped other people. I have to be very careful with words, you know. It's like
just take Carrie's advice and just use the word psychologize. He's gonna psychologize you.
I'm not using the psychologize. It's not a word.
Bro, psychologize is a word now.
Oh my god. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and hope you guys have a good night. Thank you to anyone who's listening. All right, take care.
Sponsored by Skillshare.
No, we're not. I'm not sponsored by anybody yet. Any closing remarks?
Yeah. Go psychologize your day.
Psychologize is not a word. All right. Cheers.